So for many months now, a lot of you have wanted me to talk about Choujin X, talk about the newest chapters, the newest characters, everything that's going on. It's absolutely insane, you all said. Good news, I finally caught up. And I definitely can clarify that it is quite indeed Sue Ishida within his prime, within his Tokyo Ghoul spec bag, and I am absolutely all for it. For a quick clarification, if some of you didn't know, Choujin X is Sue Ishida's brand new series. It's been going on for a little bit now, and if you don't know who Ishida is, he is the author of Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re. Choujin X, however, is a little bit different. While it has a lot of similarities and concepts pulled from Tokyo Ghoul and extrapolated in a multitude of differing ways that may feel quite familiar but also evolved and different, there's one lingering disclaimer for this series. It is published irregularly, meaning that it has no release schedule. It is not a weekly manga or a bi-weekly or a monthly or anything in between. The chapters release when Ishida is done with them, when he is happy with them. Now this is a great thing. It benefits creativity, it benefits health, it benefits one's productivity, and you can definitely tell with how much emphasis has gone into Choujin X. The way the story is told feels quite different. It's refreshing but also a little bit scary at the same time. However, the downside to this is that it's going to challenge you. It's going to challenge how long you can be connected to this story because you're very comfortable within the manga industry reading weekly or bi-weekly or monthly related stories, stuff that releases on a schedule, a very set and strict one. So potentially you may not be used to a story releasing a chapter when it's finished, when it's ready to be delivered. And a lot of the time your attention span can be thrown all over the place. You don't know when a new chapter is coming. It might come in a handful of days, it might come 6 months later. You don't really know. This can easily be a very rough thing to digest, but it is for the better. Again, better for health, better for creativity, better for productivity. Not a lot of authors have this luxury. So of course there's going to be some sort of caveats within there. With that out of the way, my catch up with Choujin X has been nothing but a blast. I think I somewhat stopped reading around chapter 8 or 9 when the snake woman known as Nari came into the picture, and she kind of blew up the story quite big for the first time in terms of different Choujin abilities and the beastification stuff and her turning into a massive snake, and just her character and presence alone was really enjoyable. Since then I decided to let the series pile on up just so I could go through a good handful of chapters, and currently it's around about the 19th chapter and it is growing exponentially. It is doing some massive things and Ishida isn't really holding back anymore. There is a ton of creativity, a ton of beautiful symbolism and depictions and all of this incredibly nuanced emotion and atmosphere going into his storytelling, going into his world building and his character profiles and how everything is introduced and weaved together. If you were a fan of Tokyo Ghoul or Tokyo Ghoul Re for its complexity, for the way Ishida loved to visualize powers and characters and the world itself and all of this emotion, so much of that has transferred over to Choujin X within its individual chapters. And for me, it was such a beautiful experience to somewhat just catch up to it and read through it all. After the snake woman, you get more of a development for Tokyo and Ely. You get small snippets of Azuma and him struggling to find himself and a lot of other characters and problematic things that are starting to happen. It's expanded upon stuff very slowly, but it has added very massive pillars or interest to these expansions. There's this thing that I believe is called the Mother, which is like this ancient Choujin beast looking thing, something straight out of Elden Ring. And certain humans work for it, they worship it, they treat it as some sort of god. And this mother is looking for beasts, they're looking for specific Choujin that are being born into the world, her children, so to speak. Then you have differing organizations, you have people trying to hunt down Tokyo because he seems to be a very specific type of Choujin. You have some psychotic random guy going around injecting people with Choujin powers, hoping to transform them, and all of this is just weaving together very beautifully to create a very expansive story. I think you'll find a ton of similarities from Tokyo Ghoul, a ton of concepts being re-altered and reused, which is very normal, it's very standard, but it's lovely that they feel very familiar. Not so much where it's identical, but enough where you'll notice it and be like, oh, I remember this is from Tokyo Ghoul, or this is this thing from Tokyo Ghoul Re. One that I love, personally, is how the Choujin ability being kind of penned originally as just like superpowers has turned more so into something that was based within Tokyo Ghoul, where it it is evolved and morphed and changed off one's emotional and mentality state. This was one of the biggest selling points for Tokyo Ghoul, how their Kaganes or Kagajas were morphed into this weird direction because of their emotions or because of their mental state that they were currently in. Choujin's doing something very similar, and then there's different variations of that depending on where one goes. They can go up and elevate further, or they could lose themselves and potentially be stuck in this Choujin-like form, which is horrendous and horrific and out of control. Sounds familiar, right? Ishida has done a great job with all of these different facets, and it's been a very enjoyable read, and just kind of going through and deciphering where he wants to go with the story. It's very difficult to decipher because honestly I couldn't tell you, but there's so much intrigue and alluring nature to the characters, to their growth, to these new factions, and everything that's going on just makes you want to continue reading, especially with the newest stuff. Like, it's constantly trying to one-up itself with this mystery, and for the first time within the story we're giving a lot of attention to Azuma, who is quite literally the opposite main character. He's like our secondary person that sits behind Tokyo. What's great about this is that when they were both introduced at the beginning, both of them took a Choujin shot to save themselves, obviously. One of them worked, which is Tokyo, who turned into a vulture, but Azuma's never did. It didn't manifest, it didn't turn into anything. So now that we're trickling in a little bit more about his disturbing past, by what it seems, his father and what he represents as an individual, how he thinks about things, and the jealousy that he had towards Tokyo and being quote-unquote left behind, this has culminated to this massive fight that's currently going on, where Azuma's in just the worst predicament you can imagine, but he's put himself in this position. He wants to be here, he wants to evolve, he doesn't want to be left behind. The best thing about this is that for the entirety of the story so far, which is only 19 chapters, we've seen Azuma as being a lion, someone very graceful and powerful and kingly, but in reality when his Choujin power didn't actually manifest, he changed quite a bit. You've seen a completely different perspective of who his character was and the jealousy that started to root itself inside of him towards Tokyo. Now that narrative has completely flipped. Tokyo is no longer this seemingly useless individual that has no drive or passion in life, and that's how he's seen himself. Now he wants to do things. Now he wants to learn and grow, and with the help of Ely has come to work really well with Tokyo and show a prowess that Tokyo really enjoys. He's inspired by it, he's influenced by it, and he wants to work hard to continue being alongside her. Azuma has regressed in this regard, and we no longer see him as a lion, kingly figure, someone that can do and be anything he wants. Instead, now he's manifested more so towards a hyena. And at this current time within the story, the next thing that we are waiting on, which is most likely going to be the next chapter, is him awakening, but not to the lion that we expected, but potentially a hyena. This has boiled up for quite some time, trickling in his relationship, his emotions, his mentality, and even a bit of some sort of traumatizing past. It's finally here. I'm not sure what type of hyena beastification he is going to have, but that is the most obvious one currently. It could be something else entirely. It could be a evolved or morphed version of it, but even so, it's interesting to conceptualize this. It's super fun to look at his journey over only 19 chapters and realize how far he has fallen from what he was. There is a beautiful duality between Tokyo and Azuma. It's introduced at the beginning, it's separated on either side to build up and distort their characters, and now it's slowly starting to intertwine back together. When you think about where Tokyo and Azuma and even Ely are going to go after this, it is very difficult. You can assume that Tokyo and Ely are going to train with the organization that they are with, which are considered quote-unquote good Choujin, but people are hunting Tokyo. They want to capture him. They want to figure out how he got his Choujin power to begin with, but there even may be more to that with how special it could potentially be. It doesn't look special, but there definitely seems to be something with the beastification process which is rather unique in a sense. There's different variations of animals that are going into the beastification, and there's not a whole lot of characters that have animal-orientated Choujin powers, some more than others, but there's a snake, there's Tokyo, there's an octopus, potentially Azuma, and it would seem that that could be a route to something much bigger, a side of the Choujin power that we have yet to be revealed to. I think what has impressed me the most with all of this, right, is Ishida's passion within all of it. When you go and read these chapters, you see so much creativity, so much diversity, so much interesting concepts and things meshing that you just probably haven't seen before. Some are super over the top, some are super subtle, the way he draws characters, the way he depicts symbolism, it's prime Sue Ishida that you remember from Tokyo Ghoul and Tokyo Ghoul Re, cultivating itself within every single chapter. And it feels like this super self-enclosed story because it's not a weekly thing, it's not a monthly thing, so it's not dictated to the publishing method. The story doesn't rotate around a week-to-week basis or a month-to-month basis. It's not designed for that. It's just designed how Ishida wants it. What he wants to tell, he may tell a lot within a chapter, or he may tell very little, maybe more intimate. This unknown that oozes from this is super intriguing, a little bit difficult to keep on top of and constantly indulge within because you don't know when the next chapter is coming, but you do know with whatever you get, it's going to be a treat regardless. It's going to be something different, it's going to be something enjoyable, and it's going to have so much variety within it. It seems like he's having a whole lot of fun, and honestly that's all that matters. Telling a story that he wants to tell, the way he wants to tell it, and doing it in the healthiest way possible. For those of you that have not caught up to Choujin X, I would highly recommend you do. There is a lot to offer with this story. If you're any sort of fan of Tokyo Ghoul or Tokyo Ghoul Re or just Ishida himself, the way he draws, the way he writes, the characters, the emotion, the symbolism, the depiction of mental health even, and how insane things can get with so much detail and subtlety, Choujin X is 100% for you. And I couldn't recommend it any more than I can. It's a very enjoyable and interesting experience that thrives off the unknown, and he is undoubtedly proving that it has worth, that it has endless potential to be something very special. Endtime. So with that, welcome to the end of the video. If you have made it this far, thank you. I appreciate you. I would love to hear your thoughts on Choujin X. Everything that's going on currently with Azuma and the paper Choujin, Ririka, I believe her name was, but also with the story in general. How do you feel about Choujin X conceptually, narratively, emotionally? How do you feel about Ishida's process of writing this story? Do you care about it releasing irregularly, or is that kind of like a deal breaker for you? I know for a lot of people it may be a little bit annoying, and it's perfectly fine if you feel like that. Just know that this is the healthiest option for Ishida as an author, as a manga creator, and it's very rare for stuff like this to happen within the industry. So it may not be a comfortable schedule, but the story that's provided to you will be nothing short of exceptional, of top quality. Let me know in the comment section below. But with that, I want to thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like and subscribe, I really appreciate it. Drink plenty of water, and I will see you within the next one. Goodbye.